Constitution says that we have the right to consume cannabis.
Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
Welcome, friends, family, cannapreneurs. This is Brainstorm, once again bringing you your weekly podcast high up in Denver, Colorado, exploring the business side of this newly emerging economy while living the lifestyle. Hey, cannapreneurs. This week's show is sponsored by Dairy Berry's Recording Studio. Dairy Berry's Recording Studio, located in Arvada, Colorado, is your local recording studio with affordable rates. Mark is well experienced and will make your show, music, or any audio you have sound great. He makes our show come across the internet loud and clear every week, and he can do the same for your project. Take a look at dairyberriesrecordingstudio.com or call Mark at 303-456-8216. We're back, and thank you for joining us for another great show of the Cannabis Community Project official podcast, The Grind and Burn. Broadcasting once again from Dank Studios up here at 3835 Elm Street, just off of Park Hill in Denver, North Denver, Colorado. Come and visit us. There's a lot going on here. This is home sweet home for me. I am staring out a giant window on a beautiful sunny afternoon, watching probably 50 people in just the last 20 or so minutes I've been here come through the door and leave with smiles on their face. And that's what I hope you get from this show, is that you come in and you leave with a smile. Imagine having not just this show, but all things cannabis related, where we could really indulge in the world of cannabis, where we could find out what's going on out there beyond a basic networking event or beyond just a basic come and smoke event. We need a place, right? And it can't really be a co-working space because that model just doesn't quite fit for what's lacking in the market. We need a space where people could think about having cannabis weddings, think about having cannabis birthday parties, think about hanging out on a Friday or Saturday night in a full-size warehouse with a semi-private outdoor patio to consume, tucked away in an industrial area of town, next to one of the top 5 premier dispensaries in town, and now it's happening. I don't want to give away any details or any confidentiality. I just want you to get ready to really have access to some place where people can truly smoke around town. Because if you've been seeing the articles, you've been seeing the news that's been coming out, cops slowly, one by one, raiding all the places around town they're allowing consumption to take place, even in private clubs, doing these passive raids of shutting down events and activities and group meetups. Well, we can put a stop to this. And a lot of it comes within the environment, right? Where are we actually having these events and what's going on and what type of laws are we in compliant with? But there's such a need out there because we got to get together. We have to form together as a community. That's the only way we can grow, and that's the only way we can find out about one another. I mean, just being on Facebook or Mass Roots or any other social media is a start, but you actually have to go out and meet people face to face. So that's what we're trying to bring you here at the Cannabis Community Project. I just wanted to give you a little bit of what's going on, kind of what the bigger vision is of what we're looking at. Maybe this warehouse might also serve as a bigger media studio where we can start producing short films and developing TV shows and, of course, more podcasting, all streamed online, where the true power of it all is on the internet. All these things I was thinking about this week as I was talking to this week's guest, the director of the documentary film, Rolling Papers. I sat down with Mitch Dickman, who gave me the behind the scenes on what it really takes to put a documentary together and some of the things that you're going to see in this documentary that you can now go and find online. Go to the websites where you can download This is a good one. I watched it twice. I had a great conversation with him. It really made me think. It was a good look back in time to the 2012, 2013 era, which feels like a long time ago, but it actually wasn't, right? It wasn't that long ago. And now here we are in a whole new stage, a whole new era to move forward. And this documentary is one of those pieces in time that we shouldn't forget. When the Denver Post took a national stance as a major newspaper and hired a editor or a reporter, I guess, a journalist, to specifically focus on cannabis issues. The pot reporter, Richard or Ricardo Baca, who runs the Cannabis, a very informational website, a lot going on there. I would love to have him on this podcast. If anybody knows him, reach out to him. I'm going to try to send him an email. I'd like to really talk to him about the last 3-4 years of how things have transpired, especially now that I've seen this documentary. I kind of feel like I have a little bit of insight to him and where he got started. And now that it's been a few years, he might have some great insight into where we're going and what he's seen and reported on over the years. So we got a lot going on. Great interview this week. Let's jump right in. But like always, before we get there, let's make sure to remember what we learned last week with our short-term memory flashback. Do you remember what we talked about? You remember who it was with? This is why we do it. If you're like me, your memory may not be the best nowadays. And it's not because you're smoking marijuana. That is a fact. It's just because you're not focusing and prioritizing your mental images and text into a coding that indexes into your brain. Grind and burn. Okay, so, what's your name again?
Formerly, my firm is David B. Bush, LLC.
You are a premier hemp attorney. Is that how you would classify yourself?
Well, that is primarily what I'm doing is industrial hemp law. There's a handful of us in Colorado, and frankly, most of the other people who practice industrial hemp law are really more marijuana attorneys than they are industrial hemp attorneys, but they just have clients in the industrial hemp space. We jumped south to Pueblo because of some things that are very interesting happening in the southern part of the state with the hemp industry, and it seemed like our next logical step to take was to go there. I definitely think I feel vested in this industry because this is what I'm trying to make a living off of as the hemp guy. Yeah. So the more people succeed, and this is what I tell people all the time, is my life's work is to help you succeed. And if you succeed, then I will succeed too. Well, maybe in a year you'll come back and you'll have something else that I could help you with as a lawyer. So giving advice to people, it's not just legal advice, it's all kinds of advice, and sometimes it's legal unless someone has a reason to try to produce marijuana seed in a breeding operation. You're really not going to see male marijuana plants. Oh, yeah. It's just the area of a circle, pi r squared, 75 square miles, where because they chose that particular location to grow marijuana, they have ruled out anybody from growing industrial hemp within that radius.
Well, this is a good example of why we need a premier lawyer, right? Of why everybody needs a lawyer.
Absolutely, and I can suggest a couple things in that regard for those of you who are interested in learning more about industrial hemp and becoming involved. There is a huge event. It's the biggest one of the year in the state of Colorado, and we're the biggest hemp state, and that is the Northern Colorado Hemp Expo. It's going to be held on Friday and Saturday, April 1st and 2nd at the Ranch Events Complex in Loveland.
What's the first thing they should do, or one of the first things?
First thing is nobody should be ashamed to start in the basement. And that is what I see over and over again, is people think the only way they can start a business is to find that magic investor, the rich Uncle George out there somewhere, who will give them $43 million for them to build their empire. And I'm going to include you in that. I've seen how you have been very frugal and how you've been very flexible and very creative and very entrepreneurial, and you have a very nice broadcasting company. People should not be ashamed to start in their garage, start in their basement. Think of Steve Jobs. Think of all those people who have made incredible contributions to the American economy and to our consumer economy and started from nowhere. You can too.
I appreciate that. How long have you been listening to the show? Long enough to know that it's your show, and all you got to do to be on it is just reach out to us at cannabiscommunityproject.com or email brainstorm@cannabiscommunityproject.com. Hey Cannapreneurs, let me take a second just to tell you about some friends of mine, as well as close sponsors of the show. Cushly Organic Products. The makers of Cushly have been environmental odor control consultants for more than 30 years. Their company puts out products that are used in hospitals, healthcare facilities, clinics, and homes throughout the United States and beyond. Cushly began as a product to help people who were going through chemotherapy and other patients who were in legal states but still not wanting to deal with the odor that medical marijuana brings when it is smoked. So Cushly has invented this very unique product that works like none other. I use it myself, and many of my close friends and family use it. What it does is it eliminates odor. It doesn't mask it. It's not a perfume. It's not a cologne. It eliminates it. And it's organic and it's non-toxic. Please check them out. They're good friends of the show, and there's a reason for that. It's because I only keep the best around my team, and Cushly is one of the best. www.cushly.com. Also find them on Facebook and other social media under the same name, Cushly Organic Products. Feeling guilty about a time with cannabis? Get it off your chest and confess it on Cannafessions, your public forum to absolve your soul.
New voice message, Wednesday, 4:21 p.m.
Yeah, I'd like to make a confession. My name is Walter. I have to confess that I went to Carlsbad Caverns, and we went down in the cavern, kind of got separated from our group a little bit. A friend and I were just standing there watching the cave, and we decided to light one up there in the middle of Carlsbad Cave, and I kind of feel bad about that, but I'm glad I did it, so thanks for letting me confess.
To replay this message, press 1. To delete this message and go to the next, press 7. To save. You have no more messages.
And that was Cannafessions. If you have a confession to make, contact me via Facebook or the website at cannabiscommunityproject.com.
We get the show via the podcast app through iTunes, and we listen to it on our phones mostly in the garden. We listen to the show as soon as it comes out. Like that little red dot pops up on Saturdays usually. We usually listen to the show on Saturday. If we can't, we'll listen to it on Sunday. You know, as soon as we can. The next time we're gardening, we listen to it. And it's almost like you're hanging out in the garden with us, getting that plant therapy that we were talking about earlier. So you don't even know it, and you're getting it from the other side of the country, which is pretty neat. And you're giving our plants therapy too. They know your voice. They're talking to you. Same as all the other podcasts that we listen to in the garden. All of our plants are familiar with everybody's voices. It's like they have their own little community of friends and family that they visit with. Sometimes we listen to it in the car, you know, like if we don't have the opportunity to listen to it in the garden. But mostly it's gardening time for the Cannabis Community Project.
Complete this sentence. I wish I had someone with whom I could share...
How about, I wish I had someone I could share more weed with.
Like more smoking partners?
Yeah, I wish I had more people that were open to the thought of cannabis being a drug and instead being a right.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to a dream and a doubt. Who else? Nowhere. Mm-hmm. See, pound size sour girl. After all the hard work that I put in, that we done put in.
Let's go.
There's no weirdo in the hood, nigga. Where? Young YF looking 9 feet tall. Go. Gonna be a young king when Tech 9's gone. Still I'm only human. Local rappers don't stand close. My spirit stay human. Heard I had it for counters just to get a point across. That's how he really rap. Thought he had Down syndrome. Give me that merch back, right back up $9 plus tax. Done taking shots. Nobody busts back. Where it is in Winnie's. We ain't taking orders. Bodyguards and soldiers by my woman.
Standing real tall, 'cause cause I'm looking from the top. And I'm looking like a goddess, and my man is a god. And I'm laughing at these bros, cause they all up on this job. And I chuckle pretty hard, cause they funny like a joke. No, H2O, blood overload. Wiping out the hoes with a flow, real overdose. Blooming like a rose, how I grow. Weird, all I know, never gonna go. Loyal soul, feel it in my soul. Get mopped when you spilling guts with my name all in your mouth. I
There's
feel
a widow in the hood, nigga. Weird.
They got us over weird.
There's a God over weird. Go.
There's a goddess up in here. Just let's go.
Have you done any other podcasts or anything?
Yeah, we've done a few podcasts.
Yeah. Are you sick of talking about your movie?
No, not at all.
Yeah, how long has it been since the inception of it all?
It was like December 31st of 2013.
Really? So
yeah, it came together pretty quickly.
2+ years.
Yeah.
On this. So you've been talking about this film for quite a while.
Yeah, a little bit. So my name's Mitch Dickman. I'm the producer and director of Rolling Papers.
Rolling Papers, documentary, right?
Yep.
I watched it last night. And this is the documentary following the Denver Post and the Ricardo Baca, very specifically. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, if that was the targeted theme of it beforehand, or if that's kind of what developed as it came about. But it is pretty much about the 2012 transition legalization, the Denver Post hiring on a reporter, and kind of working through mainstream media on the cannabis industry. Is that a correct summation of?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good summation. There's been a lot of films about marijuana, and some of our team members were making a film back in 2009, 2010, 2011 about medicinal marijuana and the challenge to get it legalized. That film got kind of put on the back burner for a couple of reasons. One, if you're making a documentary and you're not an actual advocate and you're trying to look at an issue, it can become kind of challenging if the hyperbole is just on both sides and it's constantly swinging back and forth, and it's not necessarily, documentaries should be entertaining. So I think that got kind of put on the back burner, and Daniel Youngie and Allison Greenberg-Millis went on to win the Academy Award for Saving Face while they put that on the back burner. And then it was in 2013 when Britta reached out to Ricardo when he got appointed the position of marijuana editor that they thought about bringing the film back up when legal sales started. And that was the time I came on the project too, and I really wasn't interested in marijuana as an issue, nor was I interested in the debate, because that happened. I mean, Colorado voters decided in 2012 that we wanted this substance legal, and why talk about the merits of that at that point? So we really kind of just wanted to look at now what, and we felt that the Denver Post was a good vehicle in which to tell that story. I mean, journalists are the ones that are framing the conversation, and it also provided a nice sub-story.
Yeah, and it got a lot of national attention. So are you from a filmmaking background?
Yeah.
And you spent the last years making documentaries or other types of films?
Yeah, I mean, I've done everything. I went to film school for it, so CU Denver. Yeah.
Are you a native of Colorado?
No, I'm from Missouri.
But you live here now?
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, theater, commercials, narrative films, documentaries, kind of done a little bit of it all.
So when you were you presented with this as a theme for the movie, or was it something that you weren't interested in, but then on your own kind of went, well, this might actually be something?
No. Like these producers that I was fortunate to work with.
Do you want to give their names?
Yeah, Britta Erickson, Carl Kister, Allison Greenberg-Millis, Katie Shapiro, and Daniel Youngie. So, I mean, just having that many, it's not cooks in the kitchen, it's more collaborators. So it was kind of Britta's thought at first to explore Ricardo as a subject, and that was really interesting. And another main collaborator of mine, Zach Armstrong, and I were like, well, we'll give it a try. So we really kind of just tipped our toe in the water January 1st. Sometimes you start a film with a ton of pre-production, and you know what the story is, and you kind of go out and try to figure out how to capture that. This was the opposite. This was no pre-production whatsoever, and just kind of fly on the wall, see what happens.
Can I ask about that? When you say a lot of pre-production of film, are we talking in general, or for documentaries, or feature films? What?
I mean, maybe I'm saying that because I come from like a line producing, assistant directing background where most of the work is done in prep. You have a schedule, you know what the script is, you know what those things are. Even certain documentary films, you package it and you get all the key elements attached, and you know who your interview subjects are going to be, and you go out and you raise the money for that. And so you kind of have to have a better idea as to what you're doing. Yeah. This was a really kind of fly by the seat of our pants type film, which worked well because there's no way you could have prepped this project.
I've always wondered about documentaries in that light, because documentaries, you kind of follow people, right? And for a far extended time than what a normal movie would be made in. So you're kind of following somebody, and are you looking for a story, or do you have kind of a story in mind beforehand and then kind of pick it out as you see what's going on over the months as it develops? How does that process work? I'm very curious.
I mean, it depends. So I'll give you 3 examples. The last film I did, I directed, was called Hannah Ranch. And I knew what the story was before we even started shooting. It was a tragic story about a man who committed suicide in south of Colorado Springs. He was a rancher. He was kind of at the forefront of the environmental eco-rancher, food movement. It was a matter of contacting all the family and figuring out these long interviews to piece the story together that had already happened. Being Evil, about Evel Knievel, which Daniel directed and Johnny Knoxville produced, they spent 2 years shopping that film around. I mean, Evel Knievel had already died. They knew what his story was, but it was figuring out the key elements to get the financing in place to be able to do the film. And then there's projects like these where you get a little bit of development money and you go out and you're like, let's see if something's there. Let's see if it's worth it to spend the time and energy it takes to do a project.
And I've looked. Nobody else has really taken this angle on making a movie about either the Denver Post or Ricardo Baca or anything else. Are you kind of the only one who's...
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, because I've seen on Netflix, but there's a few other kind of from the 2012 transition in Colorado documentaries that were made, and they focus on different aspects. But this was the first one that was specifically kind of on this, which was kind of the big story that came about. How did the relationship with the Denver Post and this start? Did you approach them and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and they opened arms, said, come on in, or how did that happen?
They said, hell no. No, Britta Erickson, again, she'd done a film called Convention in 2008 around the Democratic National Convention, and one of her characters / storylines was someone within the Denver Post. So the editor, Greg Moore, was comfortable with Britta, and they'd already had a history there. So she pitched it as an idea to them, and they were comfortable with it. And we had very clear boundaries that this wasn't branded content. We could be critical of the Denver Post if we felt we needed to be. They had no editorial control or no financial stake in what happened.
They came out looking pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of reflective of it, and like very forward thinking for a newspaper today to be devoting this kind of attention to it.
Greg Moore, the editor, he was funny, and he looks like a great guy to be
awesome.
at the head of it. As a matter of fact, I wrote down one of the quotes that made me laugh out loud in the movie was when he said they're looking at the decision to hire Rick Baca. He had previously been in the music scene, so he knew he was familiar with marijuana.
Yeah, that's good.
That made me just laugh out loud. It was funny, and he seemed like a very good guy throughout this. When they sent him to Uruguay and you guys tagged along, how did that work? Did you just fund your own budget, and because he was going, that was just part of what you got to do, and you just went with him?
Yeah, I mean, he went on the Post to be able to pull the trip off and cover this story, and we figured out the resources within our budget to make it happen.
Did he go alone?
Yeah.
Okay, and then how many of your crew went?
We had 2, just myself and my main collaborator, Zach Armstrong, and then we hired a production services company out of Uruguay. So we had a translator, we had a driver, we had a sound recording person, and we had a producer. Kind of drove us all around.
And what was that like, roaming the streets of Uruguay with the cameras? And
totally like gonzo journalism. It was great.
People very interested, a little standoffish?
Ricardo had prepped it really well and reached out to a lot of people before, and then obviously, he was trying to get the interview with the president all the way up until the end. No, I mean, Uruguay is a beautiful country, very nice people. Chivitos are delicious, and it was great.
That's the sandwich torta looking thing. That was actually very interesting because prior to seeing that segment in your movie, I had a different perception of what was going on down there. In my mind, it was kind of an extension of what was happening here in Colorado, and I think what your movie highlighted was not really what's going on down there. There's some similar goals in legalization, but the purpose behind it is very different, and their belief around marijuana in general is a little different, and how they want to implement it is very different. So that was very educational.
Cool.
A little enlightening to realize that, Colorado is still unique in what they're doing here, despite what everybody else in the world is doing.
Sure.
That was a good highlight on that. How much money does it actually take to fund a film like this?
$3.
$3? Bucket of chicken?
Yeah, no, we can't disclose the budget.
Yeah,
that's fine. Sorry.
I mean, are we talking about large budgets comparable to maybe?
Yeah, it's in the it's under $1 million.
Okay, and did you crowdfund this?
We did do some crowdfunding. Crowdfunding was a portion of the budget. I mean, and really you get funding at kind of all levels. So again, I mentioned that initial development money from the producers. We had a fiscal sponsor in the Denver Film Society. So anybody that wanted to make a donation could channel it through them, and then they would help us on the project. The Kickstarter was huge, just to show supporters and that people believed in the project. And then it also it raises the attention of the industry. So we got some cold calls from like Sony Pictures Classics and the Weinstein Company and some sales agents and things like that. IndieWire, it put them on their radar. And private equity. So we went to individual investors and sat down and pitched them the film and, why we thought it would make a buck. Probably the most interesting one was the ArcView Cannabis Network. Are you familiar with them? So yeah, we pitched with them, their group. And I just remember being on like the Skype podcast and going against a weed yo-yo and like some kind of a growing bucket. And then here we are, just like a film, but we were right in the mix there. And then we went to their thing and we got a lot of money out of ArcView and those investors are happy. So
ArcView, the big national one, locally here in Boulder, we have Canopy, which is the extension of ArcView, doing the same thing just on a local level. Every semester they have 10 companies that come through. They fund them $20,000 each in exchange for 9.5% of their business. And then they have 3-4 months to basically work together as a collaborative team, very similar to ArcView, and then they make bigger and bigger pitches through the ArcView network as they get going. So what it sounds like is you're saying is a movie is very similar to a business or a product. You got to get some people to seed fund you, and then you got to make a little bit, and then you got to get more people to fund you a little bit more, and then you got to do a little bit more and get more people to fund you until it finally gets out to a point of distribution, which is where you're at now.
Totally. No matter how many times I thought like, I'm just an artist, and I'm making a film. It's like, no, I'm kind of like Rye. I've got a baby to feed, and she can't eat movies. So, got to figure out a way to like make this a business.
Is this your full-time gig? Are you a director, producer as a full-time thing? Yeah. So this means you live off of commission, I guess, in a sense.
Or salary, whatever you want. Not necessarily commission, but like a fight for a day rate or a monthly wage.
From those who are investing in you? Okay.
So. Or in the project. Like each project has its own budget. Same way I'd pay a DP, a certain amount per day. I'll put a salary in for myself.
As the director on that. Okay. And then does it also where if the movie becomes hugely successful and profitable, you share in that also?
Sure.
So then the payoff is really not necessarily day-to-day expense of what the salary is. It's really trying to get the big payoff. And then
No, I mean, it is the day-to-day. Like at the end of the day, I mean, to make a sustainable filmmaking industry, we all have to like, you can't bank on Blair Witch, like I can't tell you how many times I've heard people, pitch projects and they think they're going to be that one and that just doesn't happen. And I mean, even Rolling Papers did well by all accounts, selling out of South by and it's got a pretty good distribution plan, but there's no guarantee to see any kind of back end.
And even Blair Witch wasn't wholly organic in that sense. There was a lot of infrastructure support from media and other things that made that whole thing happen. And
I mean, I'm planning on this podcast being whether we make it or break it on this film. So
10,000 downloads tonight.
No pressure.
Are you officially on sales? Because I got the screener, so I wasn't sure when the exact.
Yeah, we released on February 19th. We were in 22 cities and then on demand in 13 countries.
So to get in a theater, are we talking about normal theaters like AMC, Century, or smaller?
Art house. Like we didn't do Landmark, but it's all art house theater. So in Denver, it's the Sea Film Center, and Seattle, it's the Sundance Select, in Los Angeles, it's the Lemley.
How does that work? You send them a screener and an invitation saying, please watch, and if you like, can I be in your theater?
No. So we sold to a company called Alchemy in March of last year. And so they handle that. They had a staff of about 100 people, and one of them is a theatrical booker. So they contact each theater and say, here's a film, here's a poster, and pretty much take it from there.
And is it a buy the space type thing? You buy the theater for a night, and then
It's a revenue split.
Okay, interesting. Because I'm sure there's people thinking about making documentaries. Don't. That's your advice.
Just joking. No, go for it.
Do you feel emotionally drained and
No. I enjoy it a lot.
Or is it a competition thing?
No. The more the merrier.
I mean, I've talked to people who always want to do some type of media, whether it's videos or radio or films or something else, but they don't have investors and they don't have really a plan or anywhere to go, and they're not really sure how to do it. So I'm always curious to what does it actually take to get something out there in the world and get it out there. Aside from the theaters, is there an online...
Oh, yeah. iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Prime, Time Warner, Comcast. And that's really where where docs live right now, is in what they call the video on demand space. So, and this is just transactional internet video on demand. So it comes out on Netflix in May, but don't wait till May. Go buy it now.
Straight from the website or from
iTunes,
Amazon,
those are kind of places. Yeah, you can just search it.
Yeah, that's kind of the future anyways, right? Media, the actual physical location is probably going to be rarer and rarer as things go on. What was, prior to this, your involvement with the industry?
With the cannabis industry?
Yeah.
No involvement. I've been a consumer of cannabis, not anything crazy, but it's always been a private thing in my home.
So after this, do you feel a different sense of connection or responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the industry. Yeah. Like, it's kind of, when you do a documentary film, I mean, you get into these cultures or subcultures, it's kind of like a wormhole, you go in and then all of a sudden it opens up into the spider web of so many other interesting things. I had no idea about dabs or shatter or cannabis cup or like any of those type of things, and realize how smart and talented a lot of these people are and how passionate they are about the plant. And, I know there's been people screaming for a long time that this is safer than alcohol and this should be the way that we're heading. And not that I didn't necessarily pay attention to it, but it wasn't one of the issues that was high on my list, and it's still not. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for this kind of entrepreneurial nature of this industry.
Would you do any other films or follow-up films? No. Moving on to something else. Is that because of maybe a lack of profitability, or just the issues have been touched on, the stories have been told, that kind of?
I mean, I guess a little bit of all of it. Yeah, I like to move on to different things,
Yeah. What's next? You said you're already in the middle of another making of a film. What are you working on?
We're wrapping up production on a film out of Australia called Casting Jean Benet.
Does this have anything to do with the Katy Perry, Really Jean Benet?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, and then we're developing a TV series called Hoods in the Woods, doing 2 films this summer. One's a Bigfoot movie called Hoax, and then one's a kind of expressionistic take on Henry David Thoreau's Walden. So kind of got to have a lot of irons in the fire and see what happens.
Hoax at all, the Blair Witch Project recreation?
No, I mean, not Blair Witch. I mean, there are some parallels, but it'll be kind of more, the director's name's Matt Allen. It's more a throwback to like classic 70s, 80s, or John Carpenter, that kind of stuff.
So when you're going from film to film, is it a project first before starting?
Oh, God, no.
How do you physically manage multiple projects at the same time?
I mean, you just have them at different stages. And we wrapped Rolling Papers in January of 2013. We've been screening, and that's a different kind of beast than being in production. Like yesterday, we're shooting on the sound stage with a crew of 40 and a cast of 20, and then I'm developing stuff, so pitching stuff and raising money for projects. So you kind of get them at all 3 phases: development, production, and distribution.
Does that happen with a team or as an individual out there constantly looking to build a team, or you have kind of a set team where you go and find projects as a team and work together as a team?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, my company is just myself, Listen Productions, but I tend to work with the same group of people, and you move together from project to project, and some of them you work together on, some of them you don't.
I guess that's kind of the way I do it too.
Yeah, what's your deal, man? What's your backstory? Are you high?
No. That's funny. That was also funny in the movie. The question at the end to the editor, but also just a funny question in general. Mine started a couple years ago after my brother passed away from leukemia, and he was
I'm sorry to hear that.
He was a grower in Northern California, in what they call the Emerald Triangle. At the time when he passed in 2009, the industry was a little different. Even though it was a medical existence, the whole industry of treating medical issues with cannabis didn't really develop like it has today. So when he passed, just being exposed to what he was doing and what was going on, and listening to, I guess, his passion and his life journey of what he was doing here, of why he had both of his bedrooms in his house closed off and he slept in the kitchen because they were full of plants, and like what would bring somebody to live this type of lifestyle. And the more I kind of looked at it, the more I realized that he wasn't just a stoner, quote unquote stoner. He was something a little bit beyond that. And ironically, he died surrounded by something that possibly could have helped him. But the things of concentrates and oils and all that, it just wasn't quite where it is today, where it wasn't really known how to treat people with cancer with cannabis. Smoking alone is not a viable treatment by itself. So after he passed, I wanted to do something in memory of him, and the only thing I know how to really do is talk. I figured, well, why don't I start a podcast around the industry and explore his life by exploring other people's life in this industry. As I looked at other shows out there, what I found was a bunch of stoner shows, and I knew I wasn't going to fit in that crevice of life because it just wasn't me. It wasn't my vocabulary. It wasn't my personality. So I needed to do something that was more me, and my background is from marketing and business, so I saw a natural fit of just exploring business through the cannabis industry or exploring cannabis through business. And that's where it started. So 2 years ago, I bought some cheap microphones. Before I had any of all this, it was just a couple microphones and didn't have a studio, didn't have anything, and just started calling businesses and saying, hey, can I come interview you and talk to you about what you do? And then I started talking to patients, and then I realized there's so much here, I just need to go with it and make it a real thing.
Very cool.
But now we have an industry where all of a sudden you can be somebody. You can have a job. You can get paid for it, and you can work your way up to be something more than whatever you're doing now, working at Conoco or, fast food or whatever you're doing. And that's kind of the point of view I wanted to take this show on, and that's what I've been hitting hard and trying to find the best of both worlds of talking about patient issues, which is very serious, but very different from talking about business issues. That's kind of where the creation of the other shows I got is just wanting to explore all the different avenues of the industry, but needing to have different shows to do it. I don't have any plans of stopping. It's getting bigger, and now I have a studio. Now I'm attached with a dispensary. We're getting ready to launch a warehouse over here where we're going to have a full place for people to have meetings and do all sorts of other stuff. So it's growing, and my goal is to really grow this into a media network, mostly based around podcasting, where I have a full lineup of shows under the cannabis umbrella. And whenever that gets to a point where I feel satisfied, then I'll look at doing shows outside of cannabis.
There you go. Take advantage while you can.
Yeah, until that point. So that's more or less what this is all about and where this has come from. Want to talk to you about your movie. It's not so much, about the marijuana aspects of the movie. The movie itself is very self-explanatory, and anybody that watches it, I think, will find it educational. And it's almost like a look back in time, a very short look back in time, but it feels like a long time ago.
Sure.
And that's what I was thinking as I was watching this was I was here when all this was happening, but it feels like such a long time ago, where this movie is like giving me a little time machine to look back and go, yeah, I remember. I remember when that was happening.
We were there.
Right. And not only that, but it's here in my hometown. I know where he's walking. I know these people and places he's talking about. So it felt very personal.
Cool.
And that's what I liked about it. And, I think Colorado has gotten a lot of attention. But to me, it's movies and media and this kind of stuff. It's just how I feel like I stay connected with what's going on. And honestly, I want to know about how you produce media, because that's what I'm interested in, and I want to know how that relates to a business sense that other people who are artists, as you said, you're kind of a self-described artist. Somebody else is a self-described artist who wants to do something. So hopefully they can hear something from you of how you actually became an independent entrepreneur in this industry, how you stopped working for somebody else.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was? When you
working
stopped?
For the man?
Yeah, when did you stop working for the man?
I mean, I've still freelanced for the man a lot, Yeah. There was a time I did a lot of commercials, and I was definitely like ad agencies and clients and those type of things. That's felt like working for the man.
Did you ever do any non-media stuff? Did you ever?
Yeah, I poured concrete. I waited tables at Ruby Tuesday. I worked at a ski shop in Arvada, and then I poured concrete for 3 years.
That's the transition I want to know about is when did you go from doing just jobs in life to finding this career, this path that you're on that I assume you're going to stick to, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of, this is your life now. When did that happen? How did that happen?
That happened my freshman and the sophomore year of college. So I worked all kinds of different jobs growing up, and then I was working concrete and just a long ass hard day of work, which I love hard physical labor. There's a lot of times I kind of like that one that's a fallback or two. It just would be simple. Get up, bust your ass, take your hard hat and your lunch pail and go to work.
Office space, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just one day I was like, I'm done with this, and I made up a bunch of resumes that basically said, I didn't know anything, but I was new to it. Picked up the phone book, called every production company. I was living in Golden at the time, every production company in the phone book in Western Denver metro area, and all of them laughed at me except for one, and he was like, yeah, I'm doing a movie up in Estes Park. I won't pay you, but I'll feed you. And I was like, sweet, I'm there. And met my wife on the set of that movie, and that was 13 and a half years ago. Wow. So I've kind of been doing it ever since.
There you go. So all you need sometimes is just an opportunity opportunity,
Yep.
and then to recognize it's an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
Many people might have said, no.
Right.
You know, what do you mean you're not going to pay me?
Right.
That's so far away. I got to go to Estes Park. How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, what kind of parting advice could you give for somebody, whether it's marijuana industry or any industry, that you could just tell somebody, you want to do something different with your life? Here's what I think about life, and here's how I did it.
Oh, wow. I don't know that I'm in any place to offer up
but you're somewhere.
That kind of advice. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
you have
I do think I do
have.
think it comes down to the process, focusing less on the actual product and focusing on the process in which it takes to make whatever it is that you're trying to do. The big part of that to me is other human beings. You know, film is a huge collaborative art form. You know, when all is said and done, and you include the music, you know, we probably had 1,000 people that worked on the film. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy to think, but there were a lot of people that contributed, and treating those people with respect and with mindfulness. And yeah, like you're going to walk onto another project, and your reputation is important. So I think trusting the process and focusing less on the product will help you in whatever you want to do.
And I saw the credits at the end of the film, a lot of people involved. How many of them were paid to be there? When you go into a dispensary and you're filming, do you have to pay those people?
No, none of the subjects were paid. None of the locations
You just have to get their permission to show them.
Yeah.
So how is it determined who's a paid person and who's just somebody that's in the background of a movie?
Well, I mean, my theory around documentary films is that you shouldn't pay anybody because it's nonfiction. You know, journalists don't pay people. So if you get higher profile and you're doing speaking fees and things like that, the people in front of the camera, and we ask a lot of them. I mean, that's a good question. We've asked a lot of these people. Ricardo was very gracious in how much we followed him and how many things he's had to do for the film, and same thing with a lot of our other characters. But people on screen generally in docs don't get paid, but everybody behind the camera working from the interns, well, not interns, but from the production assistants on up to the producers try to get paid a little.
So when he's in his house, just kind of on his laptop, is that you with the camera just sitting there?
No, that's my DP, Zach Armstrong.
And is that what he's doing? Is he literally just hanging out for hours and hours?
Yeah. Do you know how long it took us to figure out getting outside of the newsroom, or like how much you can make, you know, somebody typing on a keyboard interesting?
I don't know.
Yeah, it took a lot.
I don't know if that's literally like hold still for 10 seconds and let's get a shot, or if it's just hours of just sitting there.
There's a lot. I mean, you kind of got to wait for moments to happen, you know?
Is there interaction between the crew and the subject?
Yeah. You let them know that you're there, and then ideally you become a fly on the wall, and they forget that you're there, and they become more comfortable. They act more like themselves, both just in their day-to-day, what we call observational stuff, and interviews as well. Like when we're having interviews, you do a very good job. Like you and I are having eye contact. I'm not staring at the microphone, you know, while I'm talking to you, because that freaks me out and makes me nervous. No, you're just having a conversation with someone.
Yeah, and definitely there was some people that I was really wondering how you got them involved, like the Dr. J's guy.
Persistence. It's kind of like Gorski says in the beginning, which is I like to hunt. Every project has somebody that doesn't want to be involved, and you want to be respectful to them and respect that decision, but kind of make your case of why it's important that they're involved. Yeah. And we needed Dr. J to be involved because we can't just take one side of the story, quote unquote.
Yeah, it was a big part of the storyline, but I mean, you still got to get his permission, right?
Correct.
He still had to invite you into his place and do the whole deal.
Or you just ambush him like Michael Moore. No, I'm not that guy.
No, he seemed like his own battle going on in that one. And I don't even know if they're around today. So.
Yeah, they are.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah. And they tested better next time they did the follow-up.
He might have contributed then to making the whole system better here, and just like everything else. So is there anything about this movie you would like people to know about before they watch it, while they're watching it, or just something that you think is kind of an important piece of what you put out here into the world?
I was about ready to go defensive, you know, because I think we've had some interesting reviews. I think a lot of people would make the film differently. And
what type of reviews?
Oh, just, you know, newspaper reviews and stuff like that. But I mean, I think it's a huge subject. You can't get everything in there. And some people take it too seriously. I'm watching a documentary.
You left stuff out?
Yeah, or that, like, I'm going to be educated about something. And it's kind of you to say that that's the case. But, like, man, we want people to have fun. And I think that there's a new school of documentaries that are happening right now. There's a lot of good work being done in the space where people are pushing the boundaries as far as what a documentary is and getting less away from the Michael Moore, Inconvenient Truth, Waiting for Superman, you know, issue films and making it entertainment, because you know, really we're competing with Real Housewives of Orange County and Sports Center and The Amazing Race and all those different things. You've got to try to make it as entertaining as possible. So I would sit back, I would relax, take a deep breath, and just kind of try to enjoy it.
And it was entertaining.
Cool.
I had some laughs and a lot of music. I don't know how many clearances for music you must have gotten, but it seemed like every 30 seconds you had a different somebody up there. So did you have to pay for that, or was that also just a permission?
No.
Each one of those. Wow.
Yeah, Bone Thugs and Harmony was not cheap.
Cool, man. Well, that was very interesting.
Cool.
And,
thank you very much.
I look forward to your next feature. Is there a specific website that kind of updates what you're working on, what's coming out?
I'm so bad about that. I'm not on social media.
No.
My website hasn't been updated in like 2 years.
No social media.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's listenproductions.com, but it hasn't been updated in a while.
So when the movies come out, they just come out and...
Well, I mean, like, this is good, man. We have a distributor and a publicist that tells me where to go and who to talk to and not what to say. I can still be me.
I was talking to, the publicist?
Yeah, Elena.
Okay, yeah. Is she also local here?
No, they're in LA. Hollywood? Yeah, no, it's not like that at all.
Very cool.
Cool.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man.
And thanks for coming down. And feel free to patron the place if you'd like, and feel free to contact us with your next film.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
There you have it, Cannapreneurs. That's all I have for you this week. But make sure to stay in touch with us. Stay with us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Twitter, all the networks out there, even Mass Roots and YouTube. Make sure to follow us every week right here. Leave your comments. Give us your feedback. Be on the show. We want to see you every week. This is your community, so make sure to come back. We'll see you next week.